Right, cool. Uh, G'day, Jenny, and welcome. Well, I'm not sure what we'd call this. Maybe the ACS video podcast, I suppose you'd call it. It's a new one for us. You've obviously been on your Her World Cricket Tour for the last year or so. It looks like you've had a hell of a good time. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what have you done in the last year?
Yeah, hi Sam. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm on her World Cricket Tour. Currently, it's a 2-year project, but I actually, when I was in one of my 53 countries last year in Estonia, I caught up with Jason Barry, who in the 90s, he went and played cricket all around the world in more than 100 countries, but he stopped at 113, right? He's a similarly crazy English person. I think crazy is a bit of a tautology sometimes with English people, a bit eccentric. Anyway, he planned this whole tour in the 90s, and I caught up with him and I said, Jason, 113 is a bit of a random number to stop on. How did you know that you were finished? And he said, oh, no, you're never off tour. You're on tour forever now. So yeah, so anyway, the tour started last year and apparently I'm on it forever now. And I live in Australia, even though I have a random hybrid, apparently English Aussie accent. But yeah, I set off from Adelaide on April the 1st last year, which was luckily not too much of a unlucky date to set off. Yeah, so I went round Asia last year. Well, half of it anyway. I've got the other half coming up this year. Then I went on to Europe. I went to about 30 countries in Europe. Then I thought, let's go and look at cricket in America and Latin America, which is just completely different. But it's just brilliant. Like I've found wherever you go, there's cricket. Like people keep telling me, oh, there's no cricket there. I'm like, I'm literally talking to the people I'm going to meet and play alongside. And then, you turn up and there it is. So, yeah,
Wow.
it's a great adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was interested. I noticed some of the countries that you've been to on the list you had on your Facebook page, and for example, Argentina, they have a burgeoning cricketing scene, or some of those countries. Just I'm amazed they play cricket, but they obviously they do.
Yeah, and actually, cricket's really quite established in Latin America. And it's often the case where, because we're Aussie now, we'll use Aussie terminology, but soccer is predated by cricket in many places. So, yeah, I mean, there's been cricket in Argentina for hundreds of years. And the Argentine women's team, I caught up with them. And a few weeks prior, they created these world headlines for making these crazy, crazy figures in T20s against Chile. And then I caught up with them, and the women, they said, oh, sorry, we don't have a cricket training tonight. It's only sort of cardio. So it's like, okay, show me what you do. And late at night, no joke, in Buenos Aires, we were in a train station, and these women were running up and down the stairs, dodging like Deliveroo people with their bikes and people with dogs and a big gang of cyclists. And I was just like, this is the reality of cricket. You just
Yeah.
make the most of what you've got wherever you've got it. So, it's been really interesting looking at cricket all around the world. But I also went to the place in Buenos Aires, which used to have a British cricket club, but Eva Peron, as a political message, she had the pavilion burnt down.
Oh, wow. I can,
Yeah, so
yeah.
there's heaps of cool stories around.
Is just out of interest, somewhere like, well, a lot of these countries aren't what we traditionally think of as big cricketing countries. Do they have the infrastructure they need? I suppose obviously they have a few grounds at least. Do they?
Infrastructure, as you can imagine, is a massive issue around the world. I mean, getting back to Australia and going down to my local clubs, and you're in the turf nets with the turf pitches, it's just your regular club. We are so privileged. We are,
Mm.
because Some countries, I'm thinking Indonesia here, don't even have one turf wicket in their whole of their country. It's very common to just have AstroTurf
Mm.
pitches. And this means actually that a sort of side curiosity is that if you're again, to use the Australian parlance, I would say groundskeeper, but if you're a curator,
Yeah.
you are much in demand around the world. You can ply your trade at premium services because that's going to be the future of cricket as more
Yeah.
and more countries um, get more money, so they're able to have turf wickets. Then the curators will come into their own, but very, very few. One of the surprising countries, I would say, for great facilities is Japan. Um,
Yeah.
it's they have about seven turf wickets in a industrial town for it's four trains anyway. It's about 110 kilometers north of Tokyo,
Wow.
and yeah. So what happened there was the cricket board talked to the local government, and they said we can bring cricket to the area, and it was a dying industrial town and everybody was aging out. So they said that would be great. Yes, please, you can have this earthquake condemned school building and which they can't use, but also
Yeah.
the land. So they put a temporary clubhouse in front, and they've got beautiful tees and this beautiful, just beautiful ground. And they're actually using a road roller because they haven't got
Oh,
a
yeah, right.
particular
Yeah.
cricket roller.
Yeah.
But I had a go on it. It was really fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, they got six or seven turf wickets. So that's quite the hub for cricket in that region, which is this is what I like about going around. It's quite surprising what you find and where you find it.
Absolutely. Japan, I was aware they played cricket. I actually know a guy who did some coaching over there at one stage. But interesting. Tell us a bit about maybe your own cricket, Jenny, and what you've done in the past. And obviously, you're obviously getting a few games around the world at the moment, so that's great. But tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my aims in doing this tour is I'd love and I am loving playing cricket in all these different teams because you get to experience the different conditions, but also it's a really great way to connect with the local people and find out really what everybody's issues are. And if you get to play alongside people, they sort of I don't know, so it's some magical bonding that you can't really get just from
Yeah.
meeting people, I think. Anyway, so I've completely forgotten the question because I got excited
I was
about
just interested in
thinking
your
about
own cricket,
playing. Oh
so
yeah. So
your own cricket and
I
history and yeah. Sorry.
sorry, I got too excited thinking about all the cool matches that I've played in. So yeah, I started playing cricket very young in England. I had to play alongside the boys at school because I didn't even know that women or girls played cricket. It was just completely invisible. Then I found out that women played, and I progressed um, fairly far. It was really something that I'd never expected. So I really enjoyed cricket in England, and I also love writing. So
Right.
I worked for Cricinfo for
Right.
several years in the early 2000s, and they actually transferred me to Australia, which was an absolute dream. It really, really was. And then I just rocked up to my local cricket club. Um, Pure coincidence. I didn't know any of the players or really any of the background. And they said, okay, your captain in A grade is going to be Karen Rolton,
Wow.
who at the
Oh,
time was
right. Yes.
captain.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was the captain of
Yeah.
Australia at the time.
Yeah.
And I was first change bowler behind the opening bowler for Australia, Emma Sampson. So I said, who else is in this league? They said, oh, Shelley Nitschke. I was like, goodness me,
Oh,
this
wow.
is like a real introduction to Australian cricket. So yeah, and then yeah, I actually had 10 years away from cricket completely because I can't do things by halves. So I completely um just burnt out, had a decade out. Then a couple of years ago, my friend got me back playing some 2020s. And then again, going all in, I was like, well, why not do a world tour now? I'm playing cricket again, you know, just
Fantastic.
casually
Yeah.
live everybody else's dreams. So I'm really conscious as I'm going along of how lucky that I am to do this. And I'm trying to be everybody's eyes and ears in the same situation and be able to, you know, relate what it really is like to play cricket around the world. So yeah, it's nice to be able to share my story today. And also I'll be, well, I am writing a book as well, because
Oh,
I can't just encapsulate everything in half an hour or an hour, because it really is. I mean, the book's already that thick, and I'm haven't even set out really. I've been to one country this year so far, so
yeah.
yeah, I have to condense all my stories.
You'll have to let us know when it's released, and maybe we can all do a book review. We do a few book reviews with the Cricket Society, so that would make some sort of sense. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Um, yeah. So tell us. Obviously, women's cricket's growing heaps these days. It's sort of become well. I'm not sure what it's like around the world, but in Australia, it's become more and more popular. Um, obviously, well, do you see that as a trend that's going to continue, and where do you sort of see women's cricket at the moment?
I am incredibly excited about the state of women's cricket at the moment. I mean, it's far from perfect, it's far
Yeah,
from developed, but given where I've come from and what I've seen,
yeah,
the changes just even in the last 2 decades, is absolutely unreal. If I think of myself as a reporter, I was probably the only written reporter at the 2009 World T20 in
right,
England.
yeah,
And now, you know, you just turn up to a Adelaide Strikers match
yeah,
and it's heaving with media. Everybody knows the players. You can put it on the telly in the local club, and the guys, you'll hear them chatting. Oh, she's in good form at the moment, or she's not. You know,
yeah,
um, that just culturally, it's absolutely massive. Obviously, the pay situations are getting so much better for women. Just this week, I heard West Indies are getting pay parity now, and just even there's so many countries around the world now where you can be a professional. It's absolutely quite insane, really. It's like my friend in Hong Kong, she was saying, "Oh, I've just been offered the opportunity to be a professional cricketer for Hong Kong, but you
right,
know, I'm also a lawyer, so." Okay, I'm going to take the sabbatical, because how often do
uh,
you get that opportunity? Then South Korea, you can be a professional cricketer in fair break competition, which it essentially showcases the best of the associate players around the world, with a few of the full member nations as well. So, for example, a player, um, Kaya Arua, she came to stay with me recently, and
yeah,
she played for Adelaide Cricket Club, but she appeared at fair break, went back and paid a house off. You know, it's like really life changing for many
wow,
women. But
yeah,
I think a good example for me of progress, I guess, is Scotland are now professionals. And it was only 20 years ago when my county, we went up to Scotland on a tour. We
mm,
absolutely thrashed them, you know. But these days, you know, the quality, that's the other thing. It's not just the pay parity and the media awareness of the players. It's the
mm,
skills and the, you know, it's not like women never had the skills, but they didn't have the opportunities
mm,
these days.
yeah,
You know, the with the coaching that's available and the opportunities to be a full-time professional, as well as the different mindset towards, you know, smashing it and run rates and that sort of thing. I mean, it's a completely different game. I
yeah,
mean, on top of that, I think I'm trying to think whether we played, when I'm talking like Cheshire playing Scotland, whether we played
mm.
even in skirts and stupid long socks.
Oh wow, yeah,
But
that's
you
a pretty
know,
good impactable. impractical for cricket, I
Really
think. Yeah,
impractical,
yeah,
really ridiculous. So, to think of how far the game's come in 20 years. And also, at the moment, if you look at women's cricket in the context of women's global sport, I mean, it's the momentum is absolutely insane. And the great thing there is that, there's been too often the excuse, oh,
mm,
women, nobody's interested in women's sport and
mm,
it doesn't pay. There's no financial incentive or imperative there. But, just look at the Matildas, the shifting of that merch,
mm,
and just, everything is there's no excuses now not to invest in women's cricket and women's sport at large,
yeah,
because the demand's certainly there and it always has been. It's just been um, a power issue, but now they're giving the women the power, and look at what's happening. It's really exciting. So also just in a global context for me to see women's cricket, the depth of it around the world is
yeah,
exciting. And the fact that women's cricket is the fastest growing sport in Asia, no surprises there, but very exciting because
mm,
culturally it's difficult often to play cricket in Asia as a woman. But, families are saying that actually there's a professional opportunity here for the women. And just talking of that, in England, when I was growing up, it was always the girls' sport at school was rounders. We had no access to
oh,
cricket.
right, yeah,
I
right,
was I was lucky that I was allowed to play alongside the boys, but generally it was rounders. But these days they've scrapped it because they've said it's not a professional pathway, to the point where some of the independent schools I've heard, well, the coach of Brazil told me this because Brazil women, because he also teaches half the year in England,
mm,
at a private girls' school called Benenden. He says there's such a competition now from schools to offer decent level girls' cricket that they employed me because I'm a name, and the parents were saying we won't send our girls to your school unless there's a good cricket coach. Now, this
right,
is the kind of stuff I could only dream about when I was younger. But speaking of Brazil, they're a brilliant story. They're the first country to contract their women ahead of their men, and they've got a thriving program for boys and girls over there, and professional players. It's really exciting.
it is. I had no idea Brazil was well right into it, and that's fantastic. I guess I'm just looking at locally here in Australia. My local cricket clubs recently started a women's or a girls cricket team. They've been very successful and it's very popular. And it's just great to see that cricket's sort of opening up to more people, especially women, because it's such a great sport for women. It's such a great sport for anyone really. Um, yeah, so I guess I was interested. You're also doing some fundraising for the LBW Trust, is that right? So could you tell us a bit about that, or?
Yeah, that's right. That's an Aussie-based charity, and the main thrust of that is providing education for children in um, disadvantage, where in the countries where cricket is traditionally known. I mean, really, these days the
Yeah,
LBW Trust could have a project everywhere. So,
cool.
excitingly, this year, I'm going to see some of the projects in action. So, I'm hoping to line up to go and see some LBW work in Sri Lanka and South Africa,
Oh,
and where's the other one? Kenya as well, which will be
okay,
really
right.
cool. And also in Nepal, I'm hoping to catch up with the work of Cricket Without Boundaries, which is
I've
an
heard of this, yeah.
UK,
Yeah.
it's the UK based charity which helps develop cricket in overseas countries as well. So yeah, it'll be really cool.
Cool. Um, I've just got a couple more questions, if you've got time, that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool. Actually, Drew and Pam, who are on our ACS committee, Drew and Pam Payne, they've followed your journey with a great deal of interest. And Drew had a quick question. You sort of answered it to some extent already, but how did you end up
Mhm.
moving from England or England to Australia? Was it through ESPN Cricket Info, was it, or was it?
Um, yes, it was a little bit of that, and also my ex is from Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I've been in Adelaide 16 years now, so
yeah, right.
absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's good down
Absolutely
that way.
love it.
Yeah,
The
you
best place.
yeah you do have a mixed accent. It's quite interesting. Yeah, yeah. Um, Now, this year coming, what countries are you sort of champing at the bit to visit? I'm interested. Yeah,
Well, I have to say, I get excited wherever I go,
yeah,
right? Because every country is interesting. There were so many stories. I honestly wish we had a week. There are
yeah,
so many stories. Um, but I will say, little young Jenny, 9 and 10-year-old Jenny watching telly in darkest England winter gloom,
yeah,
just wanting to be overseas, is finally getting her wish this year because
yeah.
I'm going to Sri Lanka and
Oh,
I'm going to
fantastic.
Cape Town.
Yeah,
I've got some domestic cricket to watch there. And
yeah,
I'm super excited because I'm also going to Barbados, which I've
yeah.
coincided for the
Right.
T20 Men's World Cup. I
Wow.
am beyond excited. But also, of course, I'm going to Bangladesh and Nepal. I've been to India several times. Absolutely love it. Haven't been for
Yeah,
years. I'm so looking forward to going back. Pakistan, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Namibia. Also going to Switzerland and Liechtenstein,
right.
Malta,
Yeah,
Isle of Man, Guernsey, but also I'm going to Serbia and then Montenegro
yeah,
to coincide with the Mediterranean Cricket League with Brad
yeah.
Hogg and Brett Lee. And also,
Yeah.
do you know Pavel Florin,
I do
the
the famous
Romanian,
Euro cricketer for that famous
yeah,
delivery. Yeah,
Romanian cult
yeah,
figure? He's
yeah,
actually from Transylvania. So
yeah.
last European summer, I
Yeah.
went over to, I took a very tiny plane to go and see him in the Transylvanian forests, and we went and
Right.
played cricket. It was so fun.
Is his
Honestly,
bowling
he's a great
improved?
person. Um, well, he bowled me out, but I only had a bit of a. We were playing with a stump because we were actually in the water. We didn't want to get any of our bats wet. But I
Yeah,
also hit him for a six, so you know,
shot. Yeah, good shot.
you win some, you lose some.
You
But no,
do.
he's such a great person. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again at the Mediterranean Cricket League this year.
Wow. Um, Now, cricket, one of the things I love about cricket and getting to play at different places, some of the grounds are beautiful. Have you got a favorite ground that you found around the world? Yeah.
Well, I will say I really love Sano Ground in Japan, in that it really captures that quintessential English vibe, which is very, very hard to replicate, I think, outside of England. Of course, I'm biased towards Adelaide, and I've had the good
Yeah.
fortune previously to play on Adelaide Oval, but only recently I played at Adelaide University Oval,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is so stunning. And you've got the Adelaide Oval as the backdrop, St. Peter's Cathedral, the river, and the cityscape. I mean, that is pretty special. It's quite hard to beat.
Yeah.
Just trying to think. I mean, we've been to I've just had the, this is the thing, I've just
Yeah.
been overwhelmed by the privilege of all the places that I've been. Let me just have a look. I made a list of all the countries I went to last year. I played at a really beautiful ground in Guatemala
Yeah.
in about October. And I think so it was high upon a hill
Mm.
in a jungle clearing,
Oh, wow.
and there
Yeah.
were sort of hawks circling overhead, and avocados had spilled down from the trees, so we had to clear those before we began. We had to hack down some of the trees as well, and then I think also what I not loved about it, but was very impacted by was the absolute contrast with the fact that just up the road in this village,
Hmm.
there were it's a gangland, so
Oh, wow. Yeah.
there were some fatal shootings just up the road while we were playing, and the guys we're playing with are from this community, and they said to me, in our village now, you have the choice. You have the choice. You can be in a gang or you can play cricket.
Yeah.
And it's much the same thing. And I said, excuse me, what do you mean it's much the same thing? And they said, oh, well, we just want to belong to something. We want to have something to do. But
Yeah.
it's just crazy how, just you pick the gang and you can have a short life and
Hmm.
a not very enjoyable life, I imagine, or you can pick cricket and go and play for your country and go overseas and enjoy everything that cricket brings to you. Like you mentioned before, what a great sport it is, and how great you mentioned for girls and women
Hmm.
now to have much more access to it because it's such a great sport that does so much for so many of us. That's what I love seeing around the world, everybody having all of these opportunities,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That sounds like a no-brainer. Either you join a gang and get shot at, or you play cricket and just duck a few bounces. It sounds pretty cut and dried what you prefer. But I guess, yeah, that is what it is, I suppose. Um,
It is
but
fascinating.
yeah, it sounds like you have a hell of a lot of passion both for cricket and for. It sounds like women's and inclusivity and opportunities for people. It sounds like to me. Is that something that really, I don't know, resonates with you, or I'm not sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think through looking at the disadvantage and empowerment of
Hmm.
women and girls, and also people from disadvantaged communities, is something that really resonates for me through cricket in particular. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm someone who wants to, go and change the whole world, but that's not realistic.
Yeah.
So for me, cricket is just the best way to look at the disadvantage, but also advocate for the change that we can make. And
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I've had that many experiences of sexism in cricket, but
Mhm.
also so many great experiences and opportunities um, within cricket. And that is boys' cricket. At the moment, I'm playing men's cricket, and
Yeah.
it's so much fun and we have such a laugh. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think because of all my personal experiences over time, it's really, really made me very, very passionate about advocating for equity and not just
Yeah.
on a large scale. I mean, I'm hoping through my book I'll be able to, do some advocacy and talking
Mm.
in media, and I've written some articles already. But also my experiences at local level being on local sports, hockey,
Yeah.
cricket committees, you really get a very good understanding of how important it is to have women on those boards, or representation, full
Yeah.
stop, and to hear the whole range of, you know, opinions and options, but also diversity just means strength because,
Does.
bring everyone's ideas together and then you get the best outcomes. But of course, having always been involved in local committees, even before I started as a journalist,
Mm.
um, you just see really that the local gets magnified at international level. It just scales up. So then it becomes even more important to really recognize what what is the current situation and how it can be improved. And actually, one guy, Terry O'Connor, who runs Estonian women's cricket, he's from Brisbane, and he is so passionate about women's cricket. I was very curious as to why, and he told me, but he said to me, you'll notice the country's boards who are really in it for the right reasons, because these days you have to have women's cricket if you want the ICC funding. So naturally, there are boards who just do that to tick the box.
Yeah.
But, he says the ones who are doing it for the right reasons have the representation of women on the boards, they have enough coaches who are women and umpires and all that. And that itself, umpires is a side issue because so many women qualify and then drop out within 2 years because they get so much abuse from the men. I mean, I've umpired a few matches as I've gone along. And, I've been questioned. Do you know the LBW rule? Yes. Do you know that how to give a wide? Yes, I do. Yes, thank you. And, that's just a top level
Still happens.
experience that I've had, but I think that gets replicated. But yeah, so that was interesting what Terry told me, and he's absolutely right about, representations on the board correlating with the genuine intentions or not of the countries. But Terry's story is very interesting. I said, what? Well, before I even got to ask him why he was so passionate, he told me, he said in local cricket growing up, he said there was a girl in his team who he played alongside from the ages of, from the age of 7, all through the levels. Then on the day she turned 13, she turned up to training and she was just told you can't play anymore. And he said she was one of the best players in our team. She was better than me, and I went on to play rep cricket, and she never did. She was told to go and find a girls' sport. And he said, I have never forgotten her face and her tears. And I said, wow, that's so incredible because look, that incident, you could never have foretold that you would end up in Estonia coaching women's cricket, but I think sometimes it's very, very easy to get very disillusioned and get very angry and frustrated. But I hope with a little bit of maturity over the years from me, these days I'm lots more chilled out. I just go, right, where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? Management, business 101. Let's just apply that. And just to go back to what we were saying before, it is exciting where women's cricket is and where it can get to. I mean, there's so much always to be done and will always need to be done, but we can do it. So yeah, I am passionate, but it's good to have a passion for something. And I think I've really fallen back in love with cricket the last few years because it's so great and there's so many stories, there's so many silly things, great things, funny things. And look at, the West Indies result, England beating India. Cricket's just the best. So, yeah.
It is. It's a wonderful game for stories and well, it's becoming a game for opportunity too, which is fantastic to see. Jenny, we may finish it there, but thank you very much for your time, and we'll follow the rest of your tour with great interest. And
thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jenny. I'll just